1.7 crore. 1.7 crore sounds like financial freedom, but if you retire at 40, this money can quietly run out. And the scary part is, it doesn't fail suddenly. It fails slowly, year after year, until one day you realize you're running out of money. So today, let's see how to actually structure this 1.7 crore so it lasts entire 40 years. And I'll also show you the type of funds you can use for each part of this strategy. So let's take a simple example. You are 40 years old. You want to retire for the next 40 years. Your monthly expense is 50,000, that is 6 lakhs per year. Now assume inflation at 7% and your portfolio earns around 9%. That means you're earning about 2% above inflation. And that 2% gap is the only reason this plan works. If returns and inflation become equal, this plan slowly starts breaking. So right now, do not worry about the exact numbers. Just focus on the structure. In my earlier video, I showed you how 1.7 crore can give you basic financial freedom. But today we go one step deeper. How to make sure that the money actually lasts. How to make sure that 1.7 crore lasts 40 years in retirement. The biggest mistake people make in retirement is treating all their money the same way. So instead, we divide 1.7 crore into three buckets. Around 45 to 50 lakhs goes in bucket one, around 50 to 55 lakhs goes into bucket two, and the remaining 65 to 70 lakhs goes into bucket three. Do not focus on exact numbers, focus on what each bucket is meant to do. So, what each bucket does. Bucket one is your safety bucket, the money you will touch in the next few years. Here you can use liquid funds, short term debt funds, bank FDs, money market funds, post office MIS. The idea is to keep several years of expenses here so that if markets crash, you can live from this bucket without touching your equity. So, bucket two is your shock absorber. It supports bucket one when needed. This kind of acts as a bridge. So here you can use balanced advantage funds, my favorite multi-asset funds, equity savings funds, and conservative hybrid funds. Bucket three is your growth engine. This is where long-term equity sits. Here you can use Nifty 500 index fund, Nifty 50 index funds, one or two good flexi cap or multi-cap funds, or both, and optionally a small international exposure. You may also consider IDCW options in some of these funds. This means you may receive periodic payouts in the form of dividends, which can partially support your expenses and reduce the need to withdraw from bucket one. Now, in some cases, if your total income in retirement is relatively low, the tax impact on these payouts can also be minimal under current tax rules. But do remember, these payouts are not guaranteed and you do not control when they come. So think of IDCW as a supporting feature. It should not be your main strategy. Do not choose products first, choose the role first. Now let's look at returns assumed within each bucket. So bucket one gives you around 6%, bucket two gives you around 8%, and bucket three gives you around 10%. Now, when you combine all three buckets, your portfolio return becomes roughly 9%. So your expenses are growing at 7%, your returns are 9%. That 2% difference is what keeps the plan alive. Now, here is the part that actually decides whether this plan works or fails, and that is refilling rules. So, rule one, when bucket one falls below about 2 years of expenses, we refill it from bucket two. So, if your inflated annual expense at that time is, say, 7.5 lakhs, then once it goes below 15 lakhs in bucket one, we refill it. Rule number two, when bucket two falls below about 3-4 years of expenses, we refill it from bucket three. So if inflated annual expense is 7.5 lakhs, we do not let bucket two go much below 25 lakhs before refilling. Rule number three, and the most important, we only refill from equity when markets are not down significantly. So if Nifty is say 20-25% below recent highs, we wait and manage from bucket one and two. Remember, this is not calendar based. This is condition based. Because if you withdraw from equity at the wrong time, you permanently damage your portfolio. Now, let me tell you what actually happens in real life. Markets fall, people panic, and they start withdrawing from equity at the worst possible time. And that is how good plans fail. Imagine this, you retire at 40, and in the first 2 years, market fall by 30%. If most of your money was in equity, you're forced to sell at a loss. But with this structure, you do not touch equity, you survive from bucket one. That is the difference here. Let me show you an example from the Excel that I made for my YouTube members. So here around age 46, bucket one reduces. So it gets refilled from bucket two. Over time, bucket two also reduces and then it gets refilled from equity. That is how the system sustains itself. You can pause, rewind, and review it if you want to understand the example, or you can simply ask me questions in the comments. I respond to almost all of them. So, what does all of this actually mean for you? 1.7 crore can work for 40 years, but it is tight. There is very little margin for error because when you retire at 40, you do not get a second chance to rebuild this corpus. Now, let's talk about what can break this plan. So, what are the risks? Risk number one, sequence of returns. If markets fall early in your retirement, equity doesn't get time to grow. So what is the solution? Solution is to keep a slightly bigger bucket one in the early years and do not sell equity in the first big crash. Risk number two, inflation. If inflation is higher than 7%, your expenses grow faster than expected. Solution is to maintain meaningful equity exposure in bucket three. Risk number three is longevity. If you live till 90 instead of 80, this plan gets stressed because this accounts for 40 years in retirement. Solution is to either plan for a slightly higher corpus or plan some light income in later years. Risk number four, behavior. If you panic and change strategy in a crash, this plan breaks. Remember, most plans do not fail because of math. They fail because of behavior. Now let's do a stress test. If returns drop to 8%, inflation stays at 7%, and you live till 90, your required corpus becomes closer to 2.4 crores. Just 1% drop in returns and 10 more years in retirement changes everything. At 3 crore, you're much more comfortable. Now you're not depending on markets for survival. Markets are kind of helping you. Think of it like this: 1.7 crore works but tight. 2.4 crores, more comfortable. 3 crores, very stable. Remember, financial freedom is not one number. It is a choice between risk and safety. Now, some of you might be thinking, what if I'm not at 1.7 crore yet? Maybe you are at 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs, or 1 crore. So here is the important part. You do not need to wait. Even today, you can start separating your money into safety, stability, and growth. Because this structure is not just for retirement, it is for how you manage your money at every stage. I have built this entire model in Excel. I've already shared it with my YouTube members that I said before. You can change your returns, inflation, assumptions, your corpus, and test your own situation. And I'll keep updating and sharing improved versions with my YouTube members going forward. Now, if you're new to the channel and if you want to understand how we arrived at 1.7 crores, watch my earlier video. But remember, this is not just a calculation. This is your life for the next 40, 50 years. The goal is not to maximize returns, it is to make sure you never run out of money. And before making decisions like this, do consider speaking to a qualified financial advisor who understands your situation. Because the right plan is not the one that looks good on Excel, it is the one that works for you. And if this video helped you, please consider sharing it with your friends, family, or anyone who is thinking of retiring. And do consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you and have a blessed day ahead.